Hi everyone, welcome to our research paper presentation. I am author and presenter Mehmet Fatih Özkan. My co-authors are Abhishek Krog and Professor Yao Ma. We are from the Department of Mechanical Engineering, Texas Tech University, Lubbock, Texas. And the title of our research paper is Inverse Reinforcement Learning Based Stochastic Derived Behavior Learning. And this is the outline which I'm going to follow today. I will start with motivation, then continue with objectives of this study. And in modeling approach section, I will provide general picture of our study. Then I will talk about more technical details of this study in driver behavior learning section. After that, the numerical results will be provided in results and discussion. Then I will conclude the presentation with conclusions and future work. Understanding driver behavior is important to enable interactive driving in mixed traffic scenarios, where human-driven vehicles and autonomous vehicles interact and share the roads. And autonomous vehicles require an accurate human driver behavior prediction model to safely operate vehicles when interacting with human-driven vehicles in mixed traffic scenarios. However, the unique and rich nature of a human's internal decision-making mechanism makes it difficult to understand human drivers' behaviors by autonomous vehicles. And over the past decades, inverse reinforcement learning-based driver behavior models have been widely used to understand humans' internal decision mechanism during the operation of vehicles. And this IRL approach assumes that humans are rational planners whose goals are choosing actions to minimize cost functions during the operation of vehicles. However, the traditional IRL-based driver behavior models are deterministic and only consider the driver behavior's uniqueness. Therefore, traditional IRL-based driver behavior models are inefficient to capture the stochastic nature of the human drivers. And to understand such human drivers' behaviors, it is necessary to establish an accurate driver behavior model which captures the uniqueness and stochasticity of driver behavior in real-world driving scenarios. And the objective of this study is to design a stochastic driver behavior model which captures the uniqueness and richness of human behavior in realistic longitudinal driving scenarios. And we have two contributions here. First one, a stochastic inverse reinforcement learning-based driver behavior model is designed to learn a cost function distribution from demonstrations. And the second one is the developed stochastic driver behavior model is applied to generate driver-specific trajectories in longitudinal driving scenarios by using the model predictive control approach. And moreover, the performance of the proposed stochastic driver behavior model is analyzed and compared with a baseline deterministic driver behavior model in the simulation studies. Before we get into technical details, I would like to present a big picture of our study. Our study has two main steps. The first step is human demonstrations collection. Here, we develop a driver-in-the-loop driving simulator, and the driver controls the vehicle in the 3D simulation environment using the hardware setup, which is capable of providing a realistic driving experience. And the next step is driver behavior learning. Here we use inverse reinforcement learning framework to acquire learned cost function distribution of the driver. Then, by using this learned cost function distribution of that particular driver, we generate driver-specific trajectories by using MPC approach. Let's move on to technical details. Here we have human driving demonstrations, which have n trajectory segments. First, the trajectory segments are clustered based on the observed driving conditions. And these driving conditions are steady car following, free motion driving, and unsteady car following driving conditions. To cluster trajectory segments, for the steady car following driving condition, we use average time headway and inverse time to collision indicators. And the trajectory segments which are not in steady car following condition are represented in free motion and unsteady car following driving conditions. And to understand whether the driver is in free motion driving or unsteady car following driving condition, K-means clustering algorithm is used. And after clustering, next step is for each trajectory segment, we use feature-based driver behavior model to model the human driver's behaviors. And here is the goal to acquire a cost function that matches the observed average feature values to the expected average feature values. And to compute observed average feature values and expected average feature values, we use acceleration, desired speed, relative speed, and relative distance features. Once we have the cost function, this cost function can explain the driver's preferred driving behaviors in the observed trajectory segment. And this cost function is represented as the linear combination of the features and their corresponding weights. Now the question is, how can we compute the expected feature values? The answer will be through the most likely trajectories. In order to generate the most likely trajectories, we should have a trajectory model. And in this study, we use kinetic polynomial trajectory model to represent longitudinal position of the vehicle. The next question will be, which trajectories will be selected? Here we use the principle of the maximum entropy. According to the principle of maximum entropy, the probabilistic model is proportional to the negative exponential of the cost obtained along the trajectory segment, and the drivers are exponentially more likely to select trajectories with lower cost. Now the goal is to acquire the weight vector. It is usually not possible to derive the weight vector analytically, but the gradient of the optimization problem with respect to the weight vector can be derived. And the gradient can be computed as the difference between the observed and expected feature values. And the feature weight vector can be updated by the normalized gradient descent method. Once the feature weight vector converges to optima, we can acquire the cost function for the corresponding trajectory segment. So by applying these steps, a set of n different cost functions will be derived for a given set of trajectory demonstrations. And the next step will be generating a distribution from the learned set of cost functions. To do this, the learned set of weight vectors are then fitted using the T-copula in a multivariate distribution. Here, one weight distribution for each driving condition is accurate. In the previous slides, we learned the cost function distribution that best represents the driver's preferences using the demonstrated driving data. Next, we will generate driver-specific trajectories. Here we use nonlinear model predictive control, and the perfect knowledge of the short horizon speed preview is assumed. And the control objective is to minimize the cost function with respect to the constraints. Here is the cost function is a random cost function from the distribution for the corresponding observed driving condition within the planning horizon. And here we have two constraints. First one is ensuring the safety during the car following scenario. Another one is ensuring the speed limit of the road. And in this nonlinear model predictive control design, the prediction horizon is set to 1 second with the sample time 0.1 second. And the minimum car following gap distance is set to 5 meters. And this proposed nonlinear model predictive control design solves nonlinear problem with sequential quadratic programming. Let's move on to the results and discussion. Here I will provide details for the driver behavior model implementation. In this study, we use 9 different car following driving scenarios. And each driving scenario is performed with 30 different times by the same driver. And 25 trajectories for each driving scenario are used for the training, and 5 trajectories are used for the testing. And 50 samples for each driving scenario are generated for the performance assessment. and the length of each trajectory segment is set to 3 seconds for the training. And here figure 2 shows an example scene from the 3D simulation environment, where a driver, which is blue vehicle, follows the preceding vehicle, which is red vehicle on the road. And figure 3 shows the speed trajectories of one of the driving scenarios used in the learning model. And it can be seen that human driver behavior is quite rich in terms of driving preferences, such as speeds, accelerations, etc., when the driver operates the vehicle in the same driving scenario. Let's move on to the driver behavior model validation and assessment. In this study, the proposed stochastic driver behavior model is compared with the traditional IRL-based deterministic driver behavior model, which is developed in our previous study. And let's move on to the testing performance of the proposed stochastic driver behavior model. Figure 4 shows the gradients of the trajectory segments used in training, and it can be seen that the feature weights converge after roughly 30 iterations for all the trajectory segments during the optimization. And figure 5 shows one of the driving scenarios, speed trajectories during training, where the initial guess, predicted trajectory with the learned cost function, and the actual trajectory are presented. It can be seen that the predicted trajectory can approach ground truth through the iterative gradients update as the weights converge to optima. We then evaluate the testing performance of the proposed stochastic IRL-based driver behavior model with the deterministic IRL-based driver behavior model in the comparison study. Figure 6 and Figure 7 show the actual and generated trajectories in one of the driving scenarios. And the results show that the proposed stochastic IRL-based driver behavior model can generate diverse trajectory samples that cover the richness of the driver's unique driving preferences. It can be seen that the proposed stochastic IRL-based driver behavior model generates accurate trajectories against the ground truth, even though the model has never seen the testing trajectories before, indicating a good level of validity. And to evaluate the performance of the learning model in the comparison study, RMSE is used between the predicted trajectories and observed trajectories as performance matrices. Table 1 shows the average RMSE values between the mean of the observed and predicted trajectories for the proposed stochastic driver behavior model, and the average RMSE values between the predicted and the mean of the observed trajectories for the deterministic baseline model among all the driving scenarios. And it is found that the proposed stochastic driver behavior model achieves 24% better speed and 27% better acceleration estimation accuracy compared to the deterministic baseline driver behavior model. As a summary, we can say that stochastic driver behavior model can better capture the richness of human driver behavior with the learned cost function distribution. And deterministic driver behavior model fails to capture the diversity of the human driving preferences with the learned single cost function. However, we observe the prediction errors for both approaches. The main reasons for this is expected feature values are computed as the feature values of the most likely trajectories, and the demonstrations do not guarantee to meet the optimal condition for any cost function. As a conclusion, in this study, we designed a stochastic driver behavior model. In this proposed model, we used inverse reinforcement learning framework, and we accrue cost function distribution of the driver through demonstrations. And the proposed stochastic driver behavior model can learn and replicate unique and stochastic driver behaviors in the car following scenarios. And stochastic driver behavior model can better learn and mimic the driving preference of a human driver compared to deterministic approach. And as a future work, A control strategy for the autonomous vehicles will be designed in mixed autonomy traffic scenarios with the human drivers, which are modeled by the proposed stochastic driver behavior model. Thank you so much for listening to us. If you have any questions, we are here to answer.